This podcast is part of the It Was a Thing on TV podcast network.
An anthology on the bad, the short-lived, and forgotten shows and events in television history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Time is up. You ran into trouble.
Episode 587, submission number 736. Fridays. We're going to talk about Fridays. I'm not singing as bad as Rebecca Black does. No way. I've got some decency. Oh, I'm sorry. Fridays aired on ABC from April 11th of 1980 to April 23rd of 1982 for, oh my gosh, 58 episodes. We could be here a long time, guys. 58 episodes.
Holy shit, I didn't even realize it was that many.
I thought it was somewhere in the 40s. I didn't realize it was 58. Man, I should have packed a sandwich or something.
Live from the Los Angeles Basin, it's Friday!
Today, we're going to wrap up our little homage, tribute, whatever you want to call it, to Saturday Night Live's 50th anniversary, which is actually happening in a little bit under 5 hours as we record this. We talked about another lackluster season of SNL, and we talked about the other version of SNL, the quote-unquote original one, with Howard Cosell. We're going to talk about a competitor to SNL. We mentioned in the SNL 20 episode that during that time of weakness on SNL's part, you had Mad TV popping up as competition against SNL in its 21st season. And then also you had, as we mentioned, Howard Stern's CBS show appeared sometime around like 97, 98. Mad TV was good. Howard Stern, I saw it. I thought there was just something missing. It wasn't what you might expect because maybe CBS didn't want to do all the stuff that, or maybe not even didn't show all the stuff they wanted to, but couldn't because how much censoring would there be? Stuff like that. And that's what the E! Show was for. You want to see the good stuff, go watch it from like 11 to midnight on E! Back in 2000, 2001. But for those that didn't have E! 25 years ago, you get the 1 hour version of sanitized Howard Stern. I think that's the best way of phrasing it. But now we're going back all the way to the 80s. 45 plus years. And this was before SNL Season 6, the Dominion year that we talked about numerous times. This started before then. This was actually during Season 5 of SNL. And I wonder if ABC was sensing a little bit of blood in the water, saying, hey, this cast is not going to be here forever. They're going to need to move on at some point. And I could not find any sort of documentation saying the reason Fridays was created was while SNL still had their original cast for the 5th year, or more or less the original cast, before the whole Dominion stuff. So was this maybe sensing that the not ready for primetime players, the OG ones, were ready to move on? Given some of the successes that those people had, maybe the timing was right. Because 80 would have been the year of Caddyshack. There's your Bill Murray there. And John Belushi, gosh knows he had done bigger things. Animal House, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I should note, Mike, 79 and 80, Aykroyd and Belushi had already left SNL to go into the movies.
Okay, I'm just saying in terms of like the OG, not ready for primetime players, the ones who started essentially in 75. But still, yeah, Chevy Chase I know had left, and Belushi, I'm guessing he left right after Animal House hit it big in 78 or the year after at least. Aykroyd obviously hit it big as well, especially in the 80s, but I know he had some stuff going on in the late 70s as well. But Bill Murray, well, Stripes would have been 82, 81.
81, I believe. He had already done Meatballs at this point, too. So
Okay, I was looking for the movie that may have been the reason why he left SNL. So Meatballs more than Stripes, definitely. Okay. So now there's this sort of state of flux in SNL to a point. You lost some of the big pieces. You got to bring more pieces on, but ultimately, like every piece that started in 75 was gone by 80 in terms of featured players. Not talking about your Don Novellos, your Guido Sarducci's, not talking about Al Franken, none of those folks. So, like I said, maybe ABC saw an opportunity and said, hey, let's do Saturday Night Live, but let's do it 24 hours earlier or 23 and a half hours earlier. I'm not even going to say with Blackjack and Hookers because really it wasn't SNL taken to a new level. It was just a comedy show, just a skit show. Just there was also entertainment, but there was really nothing, in my opinion, that made Fridays something interesting, something different. I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cast members, because just like SNL, you got to have a cast.
Well, hold on, Mike. Before you mention the cast, I have some breaking news.
This is CNN breaking news.
UCLA just upset Penn State.
They did hold on. Wow.
They just showed on the Chiron on CBS. It's the first time an 0-14 beat a team in the top 10 since UTEP beat BYU in 85.
Dang.
Wow.
40 years. Oh my gosh. But also at the same time, this is like the downfall of Penn State because they lost last week. They were number 3, and then they lost last week to Oregon. Well, Oregon's number 6, so it wasn't like they're nobodies. But now they lose to UCLA, and UCLA, as we were talking about before the show, legitimately maybe the last time they were halfway decent was when Cade McNown was their quarterback, and that was 1998. So 27 years ago. Good heavens. I'm sorry, guys. The Cade McNown era of UCLA was almost 30 years ago, which also means the Cade McNown era of Chicago Bears football was 26 years ago at this point. We are getting old. Watch Penn State drop to probably about 14, 15. They're dropping like a rock. Would that be a fair approximation, Greg? Do you think it'll be about 14th, 15th the poll this week?
Yeah. But I mean, in the playoff era, losing 2 games is not the end of the world.
No, but also at the same time, they play Ohio State in about 2 weeks, and they're number 1 in the country. 3 losses, that I don't think is going to work well in their favor, especially losing to UCLA, who didn't win a game at all this year until now. That strength of schedule and whatnot, those losses, losing to UCLA is going to be a big black mark on their possible playoff chances. I don't even care if they beat Ohio State. that UCLA loss is going to hurt. As a quickie update, in case you didn't hear, Penn State, they didn't end up at 14th or 15th. They ended up out of the top 25, 27th if I remember my AP poll. But we're not here to talk about UCLA and Penn State and Cade McNown. We're here to talk about Fridays. So as I was saying, you obviously have to have a cast because, what's a comedy show, especially an ensemble comedy show, without a cast? So let's go through the names, and we'll just go in alphabetical order. We'll start with Mark Blankfield. We've talked about him. He was on a couple of episodes of Sledgehammer. He was a baddie, like a punk baddie in one episode. And I forget what he did in the other episode, but he was on 2 episodes of Sledgehammer, and he just passed away about a year and a half ago, March of 2024. But he was somebody who appeared frequently on television back in the 80s and 90s primarily. Second is Mary Edith Burrell. Mary Edith Burrell, among the roles she had post Fridays, she was on Throb. So that means she worked with not just Jonathan Prince, but she must have also worked at some point with Crystal Bernard. Maybe they worked together because Mary Edith Burrell had to pay the rent.
I want to see Rain.
I want to see Rand.
We know you do. Next up is Melanie Chardoff. Guys, I'm not even joking when I say this. Apparently, and I just saw this, must have been yesterday or maybe Thursday. Apparently, there's somebody who is a scammer, and the profile they use is not even joking. They're pretending to be Melanie Chardoff. I'm just the messenger. But somebody, I think it may have been possibly the Fun for All Ages group. I don't think it was Omnibus. I don't think it was any of the other groups that I follow. But yeah, they're like, this person, this scammer or bot or whatever, is pretending to be Melanie Chardoff. Like, how random could that be? I'm sorry, I find huge entertainment values in that. It's like, of all the celebrities in the world, of all the comedic actors and actresses in the world over the last 50 years, you decide to go with Melanie Chardoff. Okay. Where you know Melanie Chardoff from? She was the Principal Musso on Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Yes, and as we all know, Parker Lewis, he can't lose.
I was just going to say, by extension, there's no way that Principal Musso can ever win because it's right there in the title. Parker Lewis Can't Lose. It isn't Parker Lewis loses occasionally. It's not Parker Lewis can't win. It's not Parker Lewis sometimes has a stalemate. It's called Parker Lewis Can't Lose. So, Principal Musso, don't even try it. You're not going to get anywhere with him. But also, she did many voices on Rugrats, including the voice of Dee Dee Pickles. So somebody that you may kind of remember from 35-ish years ago. She's done more since then. But that's, I think, what she's best known for outside of Fridays and also outside of online scamming. I kid. I just find that absolutely friggin' hilarious that somebody would pose as Melanie Chardoff and scam people. But scams aren't cool. Be nice to each other. Since we're doing this in alphabetical order, we're going to hit probably the biggest name next. That person being Larry David. I don't know where we could start, or if we should even say anything beyond Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's pretty much all you need to know. Next up is Rich Hall. He was on SNL for a little while. He was on in that 84 period, I believe.
Yep.
84, 85, yeah. Rich Hall doesn't do much in terms of TV anymore. He hasn't done TV in quite a long time. Where I know him from, and you guys may remember this back, maybe not, but going back about 35, 40 years, on not necessarily the news, there was something that Rich Hall did called Sniglets.
I totally remember the Sniglets. They had a little book of Sniglets.
Not only that, they also have a board game of Sniglets, because I've got it in my collection in my basement. But I remember him from Sniglets specifically because one of my teachers in high school, that was like his once-a-day calendar. You know, some of us have like Calvin and Hobbes or Pearls Before Swine or Jeopardy or what have you. My history teacher in high school, again going back well over 35 years, he had Sniglets calendars. And I must have been the only person in the classes. I had him, I think, for about 2 years or 3 years. I must have been the only student in the classes he had who appreciated the humor of Rich Hall and Sniglets. Besides him. Oh, he was just rolling. He's like, oh, this is so brilliant. But, you know, when you're talking to 15, 16-year-old students, you got to find some sort of hook that gets them interested. And, sorry, 1989, 1990, Sniglets just aren't doing it. I'm sorry, Mr. Hodder. R.I.P. We love you, man. And actually, unrelated to all that, Mr. Hodder, who was the history teacher I mentioned, he was one of the student teacher supervisors at CSU when I did my undergrad there. And I saw him, I think it was like 2005. Must have been 2005. I graduated in 2006, and I didn't do student teaching in 2004. It was like right after the Game Show Congress, because that was, I think, the week before school began. So I come back from the Game Show Congress. We have our little get-together of all the student teachers, and there's Mr. Hodder, and I haven't seen him in 14 years, and humor's still the same. But one interesting thing he did in his later years, I think he was retired from teaching. Well, obviously he had to be retired from teaching. He was doing this thing at Cleveland State University. He was the Cleveland area's top Teddy Roosevelt impersonator, believe it or not.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, this is weird, but in his later years, he impersonated Teddy Roosevelt specifically like for events at the James Garfield House, which is about 7 miles away from here. He did it at like the Rutherford B. Hayes House, which is down like near Canton. So he was like a historical reenactor of Teddy Roosevelt, but not like the Teddy Roosevelt you see on Tune In With Me. Sorry, he doesn't have that macho, you know, whatever Teddy Roosevelt does on Tune In With Me.
What's Teddy Roosevelt doing here? What are you dorks doing here?
Okay, I think I've told you enough about my high school civics teacher, history teacher, and how he was Teddy Roosevelt. So we'll move on to somebody else of importance. Next up is Darrow Igus. And the place that we mentioned, we didn't mention him all that long ago. It was only about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was on Rollout. And unfortunately, given he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, this may be just about the limit of what his career was in terms of, like, I don't want to say leading roles, but big roles. He was on an episode of ER as a drunk in 1995. Yeah, that's a good role. A drunk on an episode of ER. He was on 2 episodes of NYPD Blue. He did an episode of Shameless in 2020, so at least he isn't totally out of the acting realm. But yeah, he did not go on to the success that, let's say, a Larry David or even a Rich Hall had. He didn't have a Sniglet calendar. What's up with that? Next up is Brandis Kemp. She was on Aftermath. We talked about her on Aftermath. Gosh, at this point, that's got to be 4 years ago, at least 4 or 5 years ago.
It was 5 years ago because we covered it in the first 100 shows.
Oh, so we covered it well before you even acknowledged that Wings made Tony Shalhoub's career.
Yeah. So let's see. It's now 287 episodes ago since I mentioned for the first time ever that I love Wings. We're almost to the halfway point of that. We'll be well past 50% of the time on this podcast that I've mentioned that I love Wings.
Animated Tony Shalhoub's career, at least until Tony Shalhoub Bread Adventures starts on CNN tomorrow night. Tony Shalhoub Breaking Bread. And I did set my DVR today to record it, so I'm not missing a single episode of Tony Shalhoub's Bread Adventures. But yeah, getting back to what she did on Aftermath, she played Alma Cox. Wait. Okay, Greg, no. I was going to say a joke, but that would be totally edited out of the podcast. But I think you're sort of in the same mind frame as me. Next up is Bruce Mahler. Bruce Mahler was Sergeant Fackler in the Police Academy movies. One of Greg's favorite franchises.
Yes.
And also, I should say Chico, too. I shouldn't just say Greg, but I know Greg loves especially his Police Academy 4.
That is the best of the franchise. Hello.
Well, I think you guys have determined that previously. But also, he played Rabbi Glickman on Seinfeld.
Yes. A lot of Seinfeld connections. I bet you Larry got him that role, probably.
Oh, there's got to be a connection there, you got to think. Oh, hey, speaking of Seinfeld connections, the next person. Michael Richards. Cosmo Kramer himself.
That's the second time this year we brought him up, because we didn't mention him in Herndon and Me during Pilot Month this year.
That was his little endeavor after Fridays. I totally forgot about the time frame of that. I remember he was on Herndon, and I almost said Herndon and Sons. That would have been a better title. Herndon and Sons, even though he's single, but no, Herndon and Me. Yeah, that was a choice. I'll just say that.
That was something.
Depends how you look at it. It was definitely something. And then the last cast member, another person who doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, is John Rourke. John Rourke played George Bush in The Naked Gun 2.5. I think that's great, because when we talk about Naked Gun 2.5, we always talk about John Sununu. Well, here's John Sununu's boss, George Bush. Okay, I'm excited for that. But also, he was on 7 episodes of Out of This World. There's a show that doesn't get much love, and that lasted, 4 seasons? It was on the 7:30 primetime thing on NBC, but also I think it ran 3 years in syndication after that. So it's a show that doesn't get much love. But also, he voiced multiple characters on another one of those sort of under-the-radar shows, and I think this is on the list, and dang it, I would love to do this. DC Follies, with Fred Willard as the barkeep. I just want an excuse to talk about Fred Willard, I'm sorry. But also, I believe on DC Follies, doing some of the voices, I'm pretty sure you had Louise Duarte, because of course you had Louise Duarte. Oh, she played, among other people, Nancy Reagan. Good heavens, no. I don't want to hear Louise Duarte do her Nancy Reagan impression, because that would imply that Louise Duarte's mouth was available, let's say that.
Oh, no.
Yes. I said it because, well, we know it's true, but also, just like yesterday, my students, we were talking about the president, the current president, but also we were talking about previous presidents, and even my students, 17, 18 years old, know about the proclivities of Nancy Reagan. They know that she did a little...
Something strange.
I don't know about something strange, but... Yeah, I'm not touching with a forklift, but yeah, even 17, 18-year-olds know that Nancy Reagan and Ronald are pieces of shit. Speaking of pieces of shit, hey, we went over the entire cast. Now we've got 58 episodes, and I mentioned this in the preview for this episode. I don't remember seeing any recurring characters, and I wonder if that may have led to the downfall. I'm not saying it did. People are probably doing things on Friday nights besides sitting around watching TV, especially for what is essentially an SNL ripoff. But when I saw a number of these episodes, there are no repeating characters, or at least aren't many. You do have like their version of Weekend Update, like a newscast. I think Melanie Chardoff was the anchor of that. But you don't really have a lot of recurring characters, especially memorable recurring characters. But also, like SNL, you've got a guest host every week, and you've got a musical guest. And again, we'll just go through it really fast since we got, what did I say, 58 episodes. Good heavens. We may be here sometime, but I'm going to try to prevent that. Episode 1, your musical guest is Kenny Loggins. And I should add that for season 1 and the first 13 episodes of season 2, you did not have a special guest host. So maybe there's the differentiation between SNL and Fridays. You had just a musical guest, Kenny Loggins. And actually, one of the sketches in this episode is backstage, Fridays will not be a Saturday Night Live clone. Right. It's not going to be a Saturday Night Live clone. Kenny Loggins performs Keep the Fire and This Is It. Well, that was a big song, This Is It. So at least you're starting off on a high note in terms of musical guests. Episode 2, the musical guest was the Boomtown Rats. Again, another really timely musical guest. Nothing wrong with that. Sketches include Citizen Kane Rosebud Send-Up, Bruce Mahler and Johann the Parakeet play violin, Skunk Man the Bank Robbery, Friday Edition, which I'm guessing is a fake newscast, maybe like 2020, with John Rourke as Ted Kennedy, Akron AM, Pastor Babbitt and the Homosexual Problem. Oh boy. This is off to a rousing start. They do like pushing the envelope a little more than this, and we'll give them that. Stranger Than Anything, The Missing Nipple. Oh boy. Again, pushing envelopes. Dick the Womanizer, The Piano Bar, Accountant Groupies, Chatty Lady at the Sidewalk Restaurant, Sully Mullins, Temporary Secretary of State, Security Guard TV promo, and Shake Your Faith, aka the Disco Religious Revival Show. The Boomtown Rats perform Someone's Looking at You and I Don't Like Mondays. Well, good, you shouldn't like Mondays, because you should like Fridays. You see how that works? Episode 3, the musical guest was The Clash. Again, big band at this point. Not that they're any less big 45 years later. Sketches include The Diner of the Living Dead, Chatty Lady and the Escalator, Another Friday Edition, Herpes Test 2, The Inflatable Nun, Women Who Spit, and Solly Mullen, Temporary Lawyer. The Clash performs London Calling, Train in Vain, The Guns of Brixton, and Clampdown. This is where things get a little rocky for Fridays, because some ABC affiliates objected to one sketch in this episode. Specifically, The Diner of the Living Dead, which centered on zombie gore and cannibalism, The Inflatable Nun, which showed Mark Blankfield as a priest ordering an inflatable sex doll nun, and Women Who Spit, which showed women as part of a roundtable discussion spitting on the floor. Reruns of this show, not just on ABC, but also when it was on USA, did not include the Diner of the Living Dead sketch, but did include the other two sketches. The episode is in full on Shout Factory's Best of Fridays DVD set, as well as the Best of Fridays compilation, which is on Tubi and Hulu. So already 3 weeks into the series, we've got controversy. And we got a lot of controversy. I mean, this was not one sketch that irritated people. This was a series of sketches. This is 3 sketches. So literally probably close to half the episode irritated people or irritated TV stations. Maybe not people, but people who show the TV show. And there were many preemptions after this. So they literally gave the show 3 weeks and said, this is not going to work. Episode 4, Warren Zevon. There's a get. Warren Zevon was the musical guest performing Gorilla, You're a Desperado, and Johnny Strikes Up the Band. No Werewolves of London. That must have been a little bit later. That's a song, in my opinion.
Wait, Mike, what did he sing? What was the first song he sang?
I should say Gorilla My Dreams, but it's Gorilla You're a Desperado.
Oh. So he sung about a gorilla, huh?
Who was a desperado, yes.
Yeah. R.I.P. Jane Goodall, by the way.
Big loss. I totally agree with you on that. And the only sketch that's listed for this episode is Dr. Payne, the Sadistic Chiropractor. Don't want to know. Episode 5, Boz Skaggs. There's another name from the late 70s and early 80s. He's the musical guest. Sketches include Chatty Lady Can't Get a Studio Audience Seat, Melanie Chartoff, and Johann the Parakeet. There's Johann the Parakeet again, for whatever reason. Ted Kennedy's Image Problem. You mean there's only one? Dick at the Gym. Not touching that one. The Friday edition featuring Mary Edith Burrell's field report on a new swear word. This being like 15 years before the internet. Go figure. Luis Valdez's Gringo Coffee. Matt Zoe. And the last male heterosexual in San Francisco. And Boz Skaggs performs Breakdown Dead Ahead and JoJo.
Surprised he did not sing Lido Shuffle.
No! Hold on. You can see, talking about Chico and Greg, I'm getting like visually pissed off. Lido Shuffle is one of the absolute worst songs in the history of mankind. The, I say classic, quote unquote classic, station here, like, oh gosh, this must have been about like 6 years ago, like right pre-COVID. They played friggin' Lido Shuffle seemingly like every hour. This song is like pulling hair out of my head. It's like toothpicks under my fingernails annoying. But also, if you've ever like seen the backstory as to Lido Shuffle, oh, it's not a good song. Both in terms of just quality of song, but also like backstory, like the lyrics and whatnot. No, Lido Shuffle can go just absolutely jump off a cliff. I friggin' hate that song. And I actually was hoping you were not going to mention that for just that reason, but no, Lido Shuffle. Screw Lido Shuffle. Screw Boz Skaggs.
What about Love, Look What You've Done to Me?
The damage has already been done. That's all I'm saying. Episode 6, Devo. Now there's a big get for 1980. Devo is the musical guest. One of the hottest acts back in 1980. And coolest. Gotta talk about those red hats they wear. Sketches include Cold Open, Devo's Dressing Room, The Emperor Strikes Back, a.k.a. Darth Vader and the Reagans. Oh my god, Darth Vader and the Reagans.
Now,
Guys,
wait a second.
Okay, get out of your system. Get out of your system.
No, you go ahead and then I'll make my joke.
No. I'm just imagining what Nancy did to Darth Vader.
Oh, given what we would later learn in Revenge of the Sith, there was probably nothing going on down there.
Nancy, woo, I am your daddy. I mean, father. No, never mind. Now, I thought you were going to go a totally different way, but whatever. Kenny the Monster, the high school reunion, George Bargatti, the Jehovah's Witnesses, Chalk Outlines, which is a short film, the Mommy and Daddy Substitute Hotline, the Brotherhood of Men Who Hum Between Words, and again, Friday Edition. Devo performs Girl You Want and Gates of Steel. I'm guessing Whip It had not been released at this point, because Whip It would be absolutely like the first song I would want Devo playing on this episode.
Hey, Mike, remember when Beavis and Butthead did Devo?
I want to say yes, but continue.
When Mark Bubba's Park comes up and Beavis is like, "Whoa, is that West Perot?"
I'm guessing this is from OG Beavis and Butthead, not the revival from like, what was that, 15 years ago or so? And I'm guessing it's not from the current version.
Yeah.
Because Devo, yeah, that's really timely in 2025 or even 2010. Well, Mark Mothersbaugh, let's say that. Mark Mothersbaugh was in Devo, and he is up there in terms of being like master of the theme song.
And what cartoon did he do the theme song for? Rugrats.
I'd say Rugrats, and also I think he did Davis Rules, and a number of other TV shows. So he's definitely had life after Devo, not unlike, say, Danny Elfman and Oingo Boingo.
Yeah. Although, if I was to start a tribute band for Devo, you know what I would call it? Bevo.
That's a bunch of bull. Oh, never mind. All right, episode 7. Ian Hunter is your musical guest. The only sketch that's listed is Sonny Mullins' Temporary Beetle, and Ian Hunter performs We Gotta Get Out of Here and Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Seriously, that's the recap. One little sentence and Ian Hunter's 2 songs.
You know who Ian Hunter performs We Gotta Get Out of Here with?
Who's that?
Ellen Foley.
Really?
Yeah.
Was she a singer, or she clearly wasn't a cast member, so I'm guessing she was part of the backup band or something?
I believe so. I mean, I've seen her because she was on, I want to say, a couple of stories of Ghost Rider where her singing was on display. This was after Night Court, obviously.
Well,
Wait,
yeah.
when was she on Ghost Rider?
She played the principal during season 1.
Oh, okay. Now I remember her on Ghost Rider.
I'm sorry, I'm too old for Ghost Rider. I've heard of it, but I've just never seen it. All right, episode 8. Hey, they got a get for the musical guest on this episode. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Sketches include Johannes the Friday's parakeet needs marijuana seeds. Not presidential debate. Prostitution debate with Pastor Babbitt. Another Friday edition. George Bargate takes the census. Matzoy, Bite the Bullet, a Tom Kramer short film, and Western Saloon. So you do have some recurring guests here, but again, who the heck, 45 years later, knows or may even remember Johannes the Parakeet, and who has even heard of George Bargate? Yeah, it's not the same as, like, John Belushi playing the samurai or some of the more memorable characters from SNL. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers performed Shadow of a Doubt and American Girl. As much of a get as Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers was, how about this for episode 9? The Beach Boys. Sketches include Family Feud, The Kennedys versus the Carters, Friday Edition, Computer Dating, Awkward Strip Club Encounter, Chatty Lady Backstage on Fridays, Battle Boy, Tom Kramer's Jazz Brunch, and Stranger Than Anything Caveman Muffins. The Beach Boys performed Keeping the Summer Alive and a medley of Good Vibrations and Going On. That is like a super get.
Now, hold on. Was Brian Wilson with them at this point?
I wonder. That's actually a pretty good question. I'm guessing maybe your answer is no. That may be the way they got them.
For those that don't know, Brian Wilson always had like, what would be the best word? He always had like some kind of phobia about performing on stage.
It looks like he did perform in the 70s and 80s. It also looks like he really enjoyed the nose candy back then, too.
Well, who in the rock and roll profession didn't back in the day?
He's not wrong. And I'm looking here. It says by the end of 1982, he weighed 340 pounds. I'm sorry. When I see Brian Wilson, and I know I haven't seen him in 1982, but you look at the 60s version of Brian Wilson, you look at the 2010s version of Brian Wilson, there's no way he could have weighed 320 pounds or 360 pounds or whatever, 340 pounds, whatever number it was. Dang, cocaine really sort of screws you up. I'm guessing it's cocaine. But also, yeah, if there's cocaine, I'm sure marijuana was involved in some way, and we all know the munchies you get off of marijuana.
Yeah. I should note that in the Texas Zombies episode of Omnibus, Ken does tell a story about when he saw Brian Wilson live in that episode. So I would recommend you listen to that segment.
How old was that episode? That obviously wasn't recent.
It was probably, think about 2-3 years ago, the Texas Zombies.
I'll have to revisit that. I've listened to every episode over the last 7 years or so, or 6 years, but that one doesn't ring a bell for some reason. Actually, one other thing I want to mention, going back to Ian Hunter, in case you don't know who Ian Hunter is, he's the lead vocalist of Mott the Hoople. There you go. There's a name that I know we never talked about. Mott the Hoople. Episode 10, the musical guest is Graham Parker. And he's not even as well known as Mott the Hoople and Ian Hunter and all that. Sketches include Friday's convention coverage, Reagan's running mate, Family Breaks the Fourth Wall, another Friday edition with the focus on mannequin refugees, Nauseating Spasms, a Tom Kramer film, and Dick the Womanizer, Jean Shopping. Graham Parker performs Empty Lives and Stupefaction. Episode 11, The Jam is your musical guest. Well, I think that sort of falls in line with Graham Parker. I've never heard of The Jam. All we've got is sketches include Ken the Monster and Urban Cowboy. Well, that would have been a big movie at that point, Urban Cowboy. The Jam performs Start and Private Hell. The final episode of season 1, again, another good get, even though I don't think they really hit their peak until maybe about 2 years later. Journey. Sketches include Sonny Mullins, temporary member of the National Organization for Women, Friday Edition, Bowler Wine, Pat's Funeral, Curse of the Cooties, Tom Kramer's The Summer Lawn Games, and Newspaper Family. Journey performs Walks Like a Lady and Where Were You? So again, this is like 2 years before Journey becomes like one of the biggest bands in the world, before Journey gets multiple video games, not just the arcade game, the Journey one, which I absolutely love, but also the Atari game. And I do believe, oh yes, because everybody keeps these in your desk drawers, guys. Look at this. I got the Journey arcade game for the 2600 in my hot little hands.
I believe that is the Escape album cover.
Well, yeah, it's called Journey Escape. I'm guessing it's called Journey Escape because the object is for like the band to escape, like, I don't want to say groupies or fans, but you've got to go through like different obstacles, and it's sort of like, I don't want to say like Frogger or Freeway or something like that, where you're trying to avoid not necessarily the baddies, or it's not Journey the arcade game. Absolutely not. So that's the end of season 1. Season 2, as I said earlier, you're not going to see musical guests until episode 13 of season 2. So that'll be episode 25. The premiere guest in season 2 was Eddie Money. Again, another good get, but also, again, wait about 6 years. He's going to be a really good get. Sketches include Urban Monster and Friday Edition. Eddie Money performs Running Back in Trinidad. I should also add that more people were added as writers, including Larry David, Larry Charles, and Bruce Mahler. So 2 of the people who actually are on the show are now also writing, for better or for worse.
And Larry Charles, of course, another Seinfeld alum.
That's the reason I mentioned it, absolutely. Episode 14, Kim Carnes is your musical guest. And sort of like Journey and Eddie Money, I think you give her a couple of years, that's where she hits it big. 82, 83, that's sort of her peak. Sketches include the Three Stooges' Atomic Bong. I can't even imagine what that is. Kim Carnes performs Cry Like a Baby and More Love. Boy, let's continue. And I know this band, for episode 3, they had a level of popularity in the late 70s and early 80s. But I think they hit it big in the mainstream about 83, 84, definitely by 85. Talking about the Cars. Sketches include Friday Edition. Like I said, that's on like seemingly every episode. That's their weekend update. A Night in Tehran, the Marx Brothers in Iran, Drugs Are Us, A Cop with Roids, and Chicken Puppets. Yeah, these all sound like winners. The Cars perform Touch and Go, Shooby Doo, and Gimme Some Slack. Episode 4. Okay, this is definitely somebody who's known, but I think the cool factor on this is off the charts. Al Jarreau. Sketches include Skunk Man Friday Edition and George Bargate, The Jehovah's Witnesses. Another George Bargate appearance, whoever he is. Al Jarreau performs Distracted in Spain, I Can Recall. Episode 5's musical guest is Split Ends. There's a name I haven't heard in quite some time. Sketches include Lunatic in the Kitchen, again, Friday edition, featuring film review with Larry David, reviewing Private Benjamin, and Midnight Sermonette with Pastor James Babbitt. Split Ends performs I Got You and I Hope I Never. Larry David reviewing Private Benjamin. Well, at least it wasn't the TV series, because I'm sure he would absolutely just not want to see Eileen Brennan. I say that with love, because Eileen Brennan was just that versatile, and she really did a heck of a job on an episode of Newhart. I think we talked about it back in like 87 or 88, where she played a writer, an author, and she was like almost the 5,000th guest to the Stratford Inn. And Dick like bothered her continually throughout the time she was there, because if you don't remember, if you've never seen Newhart, Dick Loudon, Bob Newhart's character, was sort of a struggling author as well, on top of being a TV host and the proprietor of the Stratford Inn. Episode 6 of season 2. I think this guy might be our first musical Mr. Black. Ted Nugent. The less said, the better about him, in my opinion. Sketches include Seeking Springsteen's Endorsement, Dick Goes to Vegas, and Friday Edition, featuring science correspondent Bruce Mahler. Ted Nugent performs Paralyzed and Scream Dream. Episode 7. Again, another one where if you wait like 4 years, oh my gosh, they're going to be like everywhere on a certain TV station. I wonder why. Dire Straits. Sketches include the great 1980 debate, a.k.a. Reagan Tries to Be Like Jack Burns, who is the announcer on the show, Jack Burns, which might actually be a step up in the world for Reagan. White House Exorcist. That's not nice to say about Nancy. Sorry.
Oh, God.
I apologize. Well, never mind. Can the Monsters One Night Stand, Friday Edition, Enter the Matsoi, 1980 election commemorative coins, and political breakup. Dire Straits performs Skate Away and Romeo and Juliet. 1980 election commemorative coins. And you thought Mr. Black dollar coins were a ripoff. Episode 8. Hey, we got Devo back again. So we got a repeat musical guest. Sketches include Backstage Cold Open, the Soap Bar, Reagan Moves into the White House. Oh, yeah. We should give you an air date for this episode, which was November 7th of 1980. So literally, Reagan just won the election earlier that week. Battle Boy Friday Edition, featuring the Friday Focus Report, Drugs Are Us, Delivery Girl, Atrocity at the Retirement Home, a Tom Kramer film, and the Liberation of Women in Eastern Europe. Here we go. Devo performs Whippets and Uncontrollable Urge. So I think my little theory that when they were on the first time and Whip It wasn't popular or didn't hit the mainstream, I think that may be true, because by this time, definitely in 1980, late 1980, Whip It is definitely a thing, and it's just running rampant on radio stations. So I think I'm absolutely right on my little hypothesis there. Episode 9, the musical guest is the Bus Boys. Sketches include Star Wars Memories, Friday Edition, The Elephant Joke Man. Oh yeah, 1980 is the year of The Elephant Man. There's your kind of big movie of the year. The Golden Boy Wrestlers, Out at the Bar, Ice Skating Convicts, another Tom Kramer film. The Brotherhood of the Men Who Ho-Hum Between Words, since we had humming earlier. And the Bus Boys perform KKK, that's letter K, and then K-A-Y. Johnny Sold Out, S-O-U-L''D, Sold Out, and Minimum Wage. Episode 10, these people were already pretty big, but again, as is like a running theme on this episode, give them about 4 or 5 years and they'll take it a step higher. Heart. Sketches include Dallas Who Shot JR, because that was pretty big at the time. And Hart performs Bebe Lestrange or Bebe Lestrange and Tell It Like It Is. Episode 11 of season 2, which is episode 23 overall. Pat Benatar. Again, she's starting to hit it really big about 1980, 81. So she's on that upwards trajectory. Sketches include Bruce Mahler's pirate song Abscam Camera, Hamlet the Daredevil, a.k.a. Dick the Play Actor, Friday Edition with Mary Edith Burrell's field report on drug dealing on the Sunset Strip, The Transphibians at the Pet Store, The Latin DJ, and ABC Friday's Fights, a.k.a. Colors Fight Color Commentary. Pat Benatar performs, if she's performing anything, she's got to perform this, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and Hell is for Children. 12th episode of season 2, Steve Forbert. There's a name that I can't say I necessarily know. Sketches include the Ronnie Horror Picture Show, Friday Edition, as always, Calvin Klein Jeans, Nat E. Dread, The Rasta Gourmet, and Square Trees, a.k.a. Prisoner Critique's Daughter's Picture. Steve Forbert performs Romeo's Tune, Lonely Girl, and Get Well Soon. And it should be noted that reruns of this episode are edited to remove the Ronnie Horror Picture Show due to the producer of the Rocky Horror Picture Show being against the parody. This sketch is available online on the Best of DVD set and was on Hulu Plus and is on Tubi TV. That's interesting. I've never heard of that happening where a producer actually took offense to it and said, hey, don't rerun this. I'm sure it's happened, but it doesn't happen all that often. Episode 13, the musical guest, and this is the final episode with no guest host, is Rockpile. Sketches include the Three Stooges, the Numb Boys, Dick, Christmas. I'm guessing it's that Dick person that we've talked about a few times. Friday Edition featuring Friday Focus Report, Street Corner Santas, and Strange Christmas Present. Rockpile performs A Knife and a Fork and Teacher Teacher. And as you might guess, with multiple Christmas-related sketches, this did air the Friday before Christmas in 1980, December 19th. Now we get special guests on top of the musical performances. George Carlin is your first guest host. Coincidentally, George Carlin was the first guest host on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
So that's a nice little coincidence there. And with George Carlin, you had George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Sketches include Backstage Cold Open, 1980, A Look Back, The Life of George Carlin, another Tom Kramer film, George Carlin Stand-Up, Friday Edition, KPLO Radio, Celebrity Super Stunt 1981, Creative Palm Reading, and The Western Shot. George Thorogood and the Destroyers performs I'm Wanted and Can't Stop Lovin'. The 15th episode, or the second episode with a guest host. This is an odd one to get, but okay. Shelley Winters hosted with the Plasmatics. The sketches include Cold Open, Popeye's Got a Brand New Bag, not Papa, Popeye's Got a Brand New Bag, Nat E. Dread, The Rasta Gourmet, Friday Edition, Draft Lottery Sweepstakes, a Tom Kramer film, a Tom Snyder parody, Creative Palm Reading 2, Great Medical Discoveries, The Making of Dr. Scholl's, and Frida Mueller, Art Agent. The Plasmatics perform Living Dead and Butcher Baby. Episode 16 from Season 2. Okay, this is another name that is like way the heck out there for 1981. If this was like 1961, I get it. But I think this is like a huge stretch for 1981 for the people who'd be watching this, you know, the teenagers and 20-somethings. I'm sure they're all clamoring to see Henny Youngman as guest host.
What?
Henny Youngman was the guest host. So I'm guessing all he did for the entire show was Take My Wife Please jokes, which were so big, again, back in the 60s and 50s. I don't get it, but you know, maybe that's part of the reason this show failed. You're going for the young kids, the younger audience, with Shelley Winters and Henny Youngman.
I feel like this show is starting to get confused because one week it leans heavily into the emerging new wave, and the next week they get Henny Youngman.
I think you are on the right track with the musical guests, but again, and we'll see down the road if your theory is true. But yeah, Shelley Winters and Henny Youngman, those are two people that I'm sure never did SNL and I'm sure would never have done SNL. So either the money was good or they were desperate or what have you. But the casting for the guests, at least these last two episodes, absolutely bonkers off the wall. There is some redemption in the musical guest, REO Speedwagon. You have the opening, That Darn Reagan. Oh, that I don't know which one they're talking about. That Darn Nancy or That Darn Ronald. Drugs Are Us, Friday edition featuring film review with Larry David reviewing Island of the Wild Babysitters. Dancing Chickens, Henny Youngman's Dressing Room, and El Show de Inez Prado. REO Speedwagon performs Don't Let Him Go and Keep on Loving You. And now, following Chico's little lead, where, why are we getting these old guests when you sometimes look at younger, more hip guests? Now we're going back to the hip side because Valerie Bertinelli is your guest host on episode 17 with the Jim Carroll Band. Sketches include The Fridays Cast Meets Valerie Bertinelli, The Trial of the Network Gang of Three, The Friday Report, with Mary Edith Burrell's field report on the crackdown on female mud activities. Woo! Howdy Doody goes to the movies. Dick goes to the New Wave Barber Shop. Creative Palm Reading. The Pat Warren Show, Couples Swatting. Howdy Doody Gets a Cab. The Latin DJ. And the Pothead Family. Jim Carroll Band performs People Who Died, Day and Night, and It's Too Late. Episode 18. This one, I think all your booking here is absolutely spot on perfect. Michael McKean and David Lander are the guest hosts. So literally Lenny and Squiggy. Beautiful casting there. And Kool and the Gang is the musical guest. So you have a well-known musical guest that really has persevered the last 45 years or 44 years at this point. So props on whoever chose this lineup. You have a backstage cold open guest star confirmation hearings. Oh, jeez. Well, that would have been a thing and still is the thing, especially since Reagan became president about 2.5, 3 weeks earlier. Reagan's Secret Service agents, Nat E. Dredd, the Rasta Chef. Friday edition with science correspondent Bruce Mahler. Rona Barra interviews Lenny and Squiggy. Late Night Cowboy, a.k.a. the Midnight Cowboy sitcom. Men and Women Who Ho-Hum Between Words. They're trying this again, okay. Latin DJ, The Frank Sinatra Story, a Tom Kramer film. The Elevator Sisters, Valentine's Day Medley. The Unprepared Job Applicant, Film Audition, and Tomorrow Coast to Coast. I'm guessing that's a Tom Snyder spoof. Kool and the Gang performs Celebration, because of course they do. Take It to the Top, and an instrumental. So again, I like that musical guest better than everything we've seen thus far. Celebration, Take It to the Top, and an instrumental. Love it, love it, love it. Episode 19, your guest host is Andy Kaufman, and Sir Douglas Quintet is the musical guest. Stick around. This is a very memorable episode. You'll see why. Sketches include Andy Kaufman's monologue, The Moral Majority Comedy Variety Hour, which is as bad as it sounds. I've seen this. The Masked Magician, Friday edition, featuring Andy Kaufman's Thought Counterthought segment. Boy, I wonder what that's a ripoff of. Point counterpoint on SNL. Howdy Doody, The Return to Frankenstein, Latin DJ, and the marijuana sketch / onstage fight cum prank. Sir Douglas Quintet performs You're Gonna Miss Me, Mendocino, and it was fun while it lasted. Man, that almost describes Fridays after this episode. It was fun while it lasted. This is the notorious episode where, during the marijuana sketch, when Andy Kaufman and 3 other people, another male, Michael Richards, actually, and 2 of the females, they go out to dinner at a restaurant. They have a tendency to dismiss themselves from the table and go to the bathroom and basically have a doobie. They get high. This is the skit where Andy Kaufman sort of breaks not just the fourth wall, but also gets out of kayfabe and says, I'm not saying this. This is stupid. And he rips the cue cards out of somebody's hands, and he gets into a fight with, I'm guessing, the stage manager. It's a very well-known incident. If you've never seen it, I'm sure you can easily find it out there. I've seen it recently on the Shout TV Fast channel when they show Fridays. This may have been, I don't want to say the beginning of the end. Maybe it was staged to elevate Friday's popularity. Who knows? But it's definitely something. We'll say that.
Well, Michael Richards was the one who put the cue cards onto the table for Andy as like a dig at him.
You're right, yes. Because Andy didn't want to say the words, or I don't even know if necessarily it was he couldn't see them. I think it was just he thought it was stupid, didn't want to say it. Michael Richards got up, got the cue cards, and basically just slammed it down on the table, on this restaurant table. And that's sort of when everything just went absolutely bonkers.
Now, Mike, in Man on the Moon, do you want to know who plays Michael Richards in that version of the sketch?
I've never seen that movie, so please tell me.
Norm Macdonald.
Wow.
Yep.
And I'm sure he sold it.
And also Caroline Ray is in that version of the sketch in Man on the Moon.
This gets better and better. Not only do you have Norm Macdonald, but you also have Caroline Ray. I need to find this now. That's absolutely great.
I believe Kino Lorber sells the Blu-ray of it because I got it recently.
Because, of course, Kino Lorber would have that. But no, I'm going to have to look for that. That's actually something I want to watch. I'm sort of intrigued by the whole Andy Kaufman thing, especially when he fought Jerry Lawler on Letterman, and then basically the last year or two of his life was dedicated to being the women's wrestling champ.
The intergender women's champ.
But still, I think he's just such a complex personality. I mean, that's the best way I could phrase it, is complex. On Taxi, when he was Laka, he comes across as very naive. I know that's the whole shtick of his character, that think it very much and all that. But then you have this incident, and then you have the Jerry Lawler incident on Letterman, and then you have him being, as you said, the intergender women's wrestling champion of the world, et cetera, et cetera. Just like his last 2 years or 3 years of his life is so complex, it intrigues me. I need to go find that movie. I remember that came out, probably 25 years ago at this point.
And remember, Mike, he got banned infamously from Saturday Night Live because they did a 1-900 number poll.
Yeah, I remember that. But still, it just adds to the entire intrigue of his legacy, especially those last, let's say, 2 or 3 years. Basically, I think his post-Taxi era, which admittedly wasn't long, but yeah, just absolutely fascinating.
I found out who Caroline Ray played in Man on the Moon.
Who'd she play?
She played Melanie Chertoff.
Oh my God.
Wait a second. Are you saying that Caroline Ray is an online scammer because now she's impersonating Melanie Chertoff?
For all we know, Caroline Ray is the online scammer impersonating Melanie Chertoff.
No, not Caroline Ray. No.
She is totally not. She is a deer, okay?
Now I want to know who the fourth person was in the sketch in Man on the Moon.
I'm sure if you give Chico a moment, he'll find out. But while he's doing that, we're going to go to episode 20 of season 2. Here is, again, a big name, an already existing name. He's made a name for himself. But give him a little time, and he's going to be one of the biggest names in all of Hollywood. Billy Crystal, with Randy Meisner as your musical guest.
And Soapwood had just ended in 81, correct?
Well, this aired February 27th of 81, so it didn't quite finish up just yet. But it's going to be complete probably in, I'm guessing, 2 months or so. Probably by end of March or end of April of 81. So it's right near the end. Sketches include Backstage, Billy Crystal's Bodyguard, Altered Statesman, Friday Edition, Creative Palm Reading 3, That's Meshuggah, Nat E. Dread, Rasta Gourmet introduces Randy Meisner, Andy Kaufman apologizes for last week's sketch, and Tom and Dolores. Randy Meisner performs Hearts on Fire and Gotta Get Away. Episode 21. David Steinberg is your guest host with the Marshall Tucker Band. You have a backstage cold open, Bing Crosby and Bob Hope in The Road to El Salvador. Oh, good heavens, that didn't age well. Drugs Are Us, The Security Alarm, Friday Edition, Immature Adults, and The Eighth Wonder of the World, The Comedy Genius. The Marshall Tucker Band performs Heard It in a Love Song, and This Time I Believe. Interesting guest host for episode 22, Don Novello as Father Guido Sarducci, with Jefferson Starship as the musical guest. So this is clearly post-Jefferson Airplane. Now we've gotten into modern times. We've gotten into the 80s. We can't have an airplane. We're a starship. Sketches include Father Guido Sarducci and Dawn, Father Guido Sarducci in A Fistful of Darwin, Friday Edition, The Eyes of the Woodsman, and Friday's cast reflects on assassinations. Don't say this is around the time that Reagan got shot. I'm guessing it is. Otherwise, the timing is just really, really weird. Jefferson Starship performs Find Your Way Back and Jane. Episode 23, Madeline Kahn is your guest host, with Frankie and the Knockouts as the musical guest. And based on the first skit I see here, yes, I'm going to say that the previous episode aired right after the Reagan assassination attempt, because the first sketch is President Reagan in the hospital. The Founding Fathers and the Second Amendment, Battle Boy, Friday Edition featuring science correspondent Bruce Mahler, The Monster Always Rings Twice, Friday's First Anniversary, a Tom Kramer film, and Lose the Fish. Frankie and the Knockouts perform Sweetheart and Come Back. This is a good get, I think, for episode 24. Especially since we talked about one of these people before the show. Not necessarily for something he's doing now. Well, kind of. But we had a nice little conversation about something related to this person that's contemporary. Mark Hamill is on this episode. So this is a year after The Empire Strikes Back. So he's, again, a big get at this point. And Jimmy Buffett is your musical guest. That's a pretty good musical guest and host pairing. Sketches include Close Encounters of the Third World. Oh, I don't even want to think about that. Natty Dread, Rastafarian Chef, Friday Edition, featuring the Pitkinville Report, Men Who Hug, Midnight Sermonette with Pastor James Babbitt, Just Pull Over, Dance Chickens, Creative Palm Reading 4, because the first 3 were so good, Howdy Doody, and Makeout Thoughts. Jimmy Buffett performs Volcano, It's My Job, and Stars Fell on Alabama. Last episode of Season 2, George Hamilton is your guest host. And this is timely because he would have been doing Love at First Bite at this point. That was, I think, 80 or 81. And Gary U.S. Bonds is your musical guest. Sketches include the Backstage Cold Open, Three Stooges, Long Lost Brother, Elevator Sisters commercial, Man in the Bushes, Friday Edition, Hollywood Party, The George Hamilton Story, a Dick Cavett parody, Repulse, The Makeup for Women Who Don't Want Attention, Howdy Doody, and Record Company Audition. Gary U.S. Bonds performs This Little Girl, Way Back, and Jolie Blonde, or Joel Blonde. Never heard of that. Now we get to the final season, Season 3, and we start off with Andy Kaufman again and the Pretenders. Andy Kaufman and Kathy Sullivan sing Home Again. Kind of funny, after his last appearance, they sing Home Again. Sketches include Drugs Are Us, Space Invaders, Friday Edition special report, How Ronald Reagan Spent His Summer Vacation. I don't want to know what he did. I'm just afraid of what Nancy did. Never mind. No.
You know what Nancy did on her summer vacation.
Well, I know the joke, and you know the joke, but, well, if you know, as we say. No Hats Allowed, aka the Genital Head People. What the hell? Friday Edition, featuring the Friday Focus Report, Tom Kramer short film Assassin MD, and the Pitkinville Report. Howdy Doody, Andy Kaufman, Who Are You? Friday Edition Late Break, Le Pill Commercial, Latin DJ, and What's Wrong Dad, aka A Punk and His Father. Andy Kaufman sings By and By, as well as Home Again, and the Pretenders performs The Adulterous Message of Love and Louie Louie. Did not know that the Pretenders did their own version of Louie Louie unless it's a totally different song. Episode 2, William Shatner is your guest host, and Kim Carnes returns as a musical guest. Sketches include aborted Star Trek sketch, of course, Ron the Ripper, the Friday edition, The Man with a Major Overreaction to Minor Pain / Shatner Contacts Spock, Friday short film Little Girl Plays Baseball, Fluffy the Dog Man, and Friday edition special report Air Traffic Controller Strike, because that would have been really darn huge in 1981. Their air traffic controllers going on strike and Reagan firing all of them. Kim Carnes performs Betty Davis Eyes, because of course she does. That's her big song. Under My Thumb and Miss You Tonight. Reruns of this episode, including versions shown on the Shout Factory DVD, Tubi, and Hulu, edit out the brief scene during the Man with a Major Overreaction to Minor Pain sketch where Brandis Kemp is knocked on the ground and exposes her thong on camera.
Uh-oh, here comes trouble.
Now, I have a question, Mike. Was TJ Hooker on the air at this point on ABC in 81?
I thought that was 82, but I could be wrong. The Star Trek movies would have been out at this point, correct? At least the first one or two?
The motion picture was already out. Wrath of Khan wouldn't be out until May of 1982.
Okay. Episode 3 of Season 3, which is episode 40 overall. Your guest hosts are Tony Geary and Jeannie Francis. I don't even know if I have to even say where they came from. Luke and Laura. And we know how big Luke and Laura were back in 81 and 82. And seemingly like all of the early 80s.
Oh, Luke and Laura's wedding was the television event of 1981.
Maybe next to like Who Shot JR, but it was definitely the daytime event of 1981. I absolutely agree with that. Your musical guest for the third time is Devo. Why miss with a good thing? Sketches include backstage soap opera, college soap opera addicts, Capitol Hill. Oh, I'm seeing a little bit of a pattern here. The first two sketches deal with soap operas. And you've got Luke and Laura on this episode. Coincidence? No. So I said college soap opera addicts / Capitol Hill, Jerry Salvino for the Organic Hut, Friday Edition, and the Transphibians. Devo performs Nutra theme, Jerkin' Back and Forth. Hey, that's what Nancy Reagan was doing back in summer of 1981. I Saw Jesus, Through Being Cool, and Working in a Coal Mine. That's another song. I never knew Devo did that. I think that'd be an interesting interpretation. Devo during Working in a Coal Mine. Episode 4, Karen Allen is your guest, and the Stray Cats are the musical guest. So a pretty good get there.
Yeah, Karen Allen's coming off Raiders of the Lost Ark in 81.
Well, I was talking about Stray Cats as musical guest, but you're not wrong. Sketches include Raiders of the Lost Thing, speaking of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tongue No Stick, The Apartment with No Fourth Wall, Friday Edition with a field report from Mary Edith Burrell on video technology, Rich Hall's Sports Phone, Latin DJ, Destroy All Garnishes for Goodness Sake, and Mary Edith Burrell is Dead. The Stray Cats perform Rock This Town, because of course, that's the big song from the Stray Cats. The Stray Cat Strut, Runaway Boys, and Baby Blue Eyes. Episode 5, this one, again, the casting, I'm not saying it's Shelley Winters or Henny Youngman level casting, but this is a little weird to me. You had Marty Feldman host, with Manhattan Transfer as the musical guest. Sketches include Marty Parody, Monster Dearest, Friday Edition, Dancing Chickens, The Praise Satan Club, Marty Feldman and his pet whatchamacallit, TV offer from Baputi, Latin DJ, and Jack the Schmearer. Manhattan Transfer performs Boy from New York City, Spies in the Night, and Route 66. Episode 6. I'm getting a little chuckle out of who the guest host was here. David Naughton. Apparently he was still making it in 1981.
Well, I think American Werewolf in London's out at this point, isn't it?
I think you're right about that. So that makes sense. It's just, I thought maybe ABC wouldn't touch David Naughton again after how bad Making It was. And the musical guest, again, give them like 6 years, 5 years, they're going to have their big hit of all time. Billy Vera and the Beaters. At this moment, just telling you, that's a great song. Sketches include Nightline, Ted Koppel Gets Some Sleep, David Naughton's musical variety show, Natty Dread, Rastafarian Gardener, Friday Edition, featuring everyone's pal Larry David and Mary Edith Burrell's field report on alternative birthing methods, the story of Dr. Pepper, sadistic artist, backstage ballet interview, Thomas Kramer's The Sumo Wrestler and the Little Boy, Friday Late Break, NASA Repairs, and the Latin DJ. They really like this Latin DJ. Billy and the Beaters, or Billy Vera and the Beaters, perform Strange Things Happening, I Take Care of Myself, and Millie Makes Some Chili. I could use some chili right now. But instead, we're going to go to episode 7. We got about 14 episodes left. We're almost there. Jamie Lee Curtis hosts with Garland Jeffries as the musical guest. And Jamie Lee Curtis, this would have been... Halloween would have been out in 78, so I'm guessing maybe Halloween 2? Question mark? I'm guessing that's what she would have done in 81. I don't know if she was on Halloween 2. Quick little synopsis here. Sketches include Halitosis and Friday Edition. Garland Jeffries performs 96 Tears, ROCK, and 35mm Dreams. Episode 8. Shelley Duvall is your guest host, with Al Jarreau coming back as musical guest. And this would have been right when Shelley Duvall hit it big with Popeye, #1, the movie. But also, this is when she did Fairy Tale Theater on Showtime. Something I remember very vividly from my childhood. No sketch names, believe it or not. I don't know if it's because it's not out there or if this show is just that bad. But we have Al Jarreau performing We're in This Love Together, Roof Garden, and Breaking Away. Episode 46, which is Season 3, Episode 9, Peter Fonda is hosting with King Crimson as a musical guest. Sketches include Drugs R Us, Friday Edition, Dancing Chickens, and a repeat of Little Girl Plays Baseball. King Crimson performs Elephant Talk and Thila Hun Ginjit. And this is 81, so this would have been on Golden Pond time. But also, I think Henry Fonda would have passed around this time. Because I don't think Henry Fonda lived into 1982. Actually, taking a look, Wikipedia says August 12th of 82. But still, this is on Golden Pond era. So that makes a little bit of sense as to why he might be hosting. Episode 10 of Season 3, Susan Sarandon's your guest host, and the Four Tops. Sketches include The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, That Darn Reagan. Which one are we talking about? It could apply to either of them. Bachelor Living with Rich Hall, Friday Edition featuring everyone's pal Larry David, Battle Boy, Jewish Names, I Dated a Zombie, Andy Warhol's TV, and Basil Street Social Club. The Four Tops perform When She Was My Girl, Let Me Set You Free, and a medley of their hits. There is one little note on Wiki about this. During the Basil Street Social Club sketch, Susan Sarandon's character, a prostitute who offers intellectual stimulation to men instead of sexual pleasure, slips up and says that her last customer blew his wad all over her instead of blew his entire conversation all over her. Most reruns have muted out blew his wad. Episode 11, Beau Bridges is your guest host with David Grisman as the musical guest. We have Christmas Time with Ronnie. Oh, I wonder who this is about, especially given the air date of December 18th, 1981, and given who's in the White House. The Osmond Family Hanukkah Special. What? The Osmond Family Hanukkah Special.
What?
But that's what I said. I am as kind of puzzled as you are about that. Nat E. Dread Rasta Claus. They're trying. I got to give them that. They're trying, but again, as I said, there's a reason why when you look at SNL in its history, you have many recognizable characters because they were funny, because they've been in movies or TV, because the actors went on to bigger and better things. They became legends. This just, I don't know. They tried, but, I think using a more contemporary phrase, they're trying to make fetch happen, and fetch ain't happening here. The Way We Used to Be, Friday edition, Brooke Shields for Calvin Klein jeans, A Classical Get Down, Three Wise Men, Frosty the Abominable Snowman, The Real People's Court, Our Childhood Christmas, and Latin DJ. Again, Latin DJ. Never heard of it, but they love going to that well every now and then. The David Grisman Quartet performs EMD, Dog Funk, and Dog's Bowl. Dog being DAWG. Sort of like the dog pound. Browns are 1-3. They may go 1-4 this week. They are going to go 1-4 this week. Now watch, we come back next week. Hey, they won against Minnesota in London. Whatever. Episode 49, Valerie Harper is your guest host, and The Cars is your musical guest. So again, The Cars, they're getting a little more popular, but like I said, I don't think they'd sort of hit their peak or make it really big until about 83, 84. So they're getting up there. Sketches include Bruce Mahler's Pirate Song 2, Video Playhouse, A Pattern for Success, a.k.a. the Pac-Man play, The Teddy Bear Knows Too Much, Friday Edition Special Report 1981 Year in Review, Calvin Klein Jeans 2, Scientists Messing Around, and Punk Ballet. The Cars perform Shake It Up. There's a big song for them. Since You're Gone, and Think It Over. So this might be sort of the beginning of their ascendance into stardom. Episode 50, again, another name the kids of 1982 were clamoring for. Not Henny Youngman, not Shelley Winters. How about Tab Hunter? I know you guys are absolutely shocked. Tab Hunter. Teenage idol of like the 50s and 60s, Tab Hunter. So relatable to the 1982 kids.
Oh, tapping into the zeitgeist of popular culture in 1982. Tab Hunter.
Oh, yeah, that was his year. The musical guest in this episode, and this is quite the odd couple, if you will. Kiss. Tab Hunter and Kiss. Talk about like two totally opposite subjects. You're mixing oil and water here, I think. It's just not going to end well. They're not going to mesh. Well, maybe, but I'm not banking on it. Sketches include Matt Soy, You Should Only Live Twice, Hollywood Cubes, Friday Edition, Bachelor Living with Rich Hall, and UFO Evidence. Kiss performs The Oath, A World Without Heroes, and I. And Hollywood Cubes, if you've never seen it, and I know we sort of lean heavy on the game show fandom, Hollywood Cubes is basically Hollywood Squares, but with a Rubik's Cube. Because that was one of the big toys back in like 81, 82, 1980. The Rubik's Cube was everywhere. And it was hosted by Dr. Erno Rubik. Larry David playing him, I should say. It's one of the more memorable sketches, let's say. Maybe not necessarily because it's totally funny, but again, they tried. A for effort, D plus for end result. Episode 14, and we're nearing the home stretch here. Howard Rollins was your guest host with Quarter Flash as the musical guest. And just taking a look really fast here, Howard Rollins, he was in the 1981 film Ragtime. Didn't know that Ragtime was that big back then. He was also in Roots the Next Generations in 1979. He was George Haley. So I'm guessing maybe Alex Haley's father, potentially. In this episode, you had, oh gosh, this doesn't age well, the first sketch. Not Amos and Andy, Amos and Gandhi. Again, I think we need to put a what here. The Today Show, Fake Executive, The Competitors, Morgue Prankster, An Ode to a Tree, Rich Hall's Sports Phone, and Three Generation Fist Fight. Border Flash performs Harden My Heart, Find Another Fool, and Take Another Picture. And in the Three Generation Fist sketch, Mary Edith Burrell was supposed to fake punch Melanie Chardoff. It wasn't a fake punch, though. She actually connected and broke one of her teeth.
Oh, a work that turned into a shoot, brother.
Episode 15, you have Bob Balaban hosting. There's a name that we don't talk about all that often. It was actually a big name. And the Blasters was your musical guest. Sketches include Professional Rhymer, and the Blasters perform I'm Shaking, Marie Marie, American Music, and So Long, Baby, Goodbye. Episode 16 of Season 3, Valerie Bertinelli returns as your host, and Bill Champlin is your musical guest. Sketches include Friday Edition featuring Rich Hall and Kitchen Potheads. Bill Champlin performs Take It Uptown and Sarah. Episode 17 of Season 3, Episode 54 overall, Victoria Principal and Chubby Checker. I don't think Chubby Checker was doing a whole heck of a lot in 1982, but maybe he was. And he just actually celebrated a birthday earlier this week as we record. He turned 84 years old. I didn't know he's only 84. I thought he was like darn close to 90. I didn't know he was like really, really young when he did the twist. Sketches include Lewd Man, the Quaalude addicted superhero. Oh boy. They love their drug references on this show, I'll tell you that. Chubby Checker performs Running, Harder Than Diamond, and Burn Up the Night. But not the twist. Well, again, that's 20 years earlier. The kids may not care about the twist. Episode 18, Lynn Redgrave, and how about this for a get? Again, give them a few years. They're sort of on the brink right now of stardom, but 1984, 1983, this is where they get really big. Huey Lewis and the News. Sketches include experimental theater. Huey Lewis and the News perform Working for a Living, Do You Believe in Love, and Giving It All Up for Love. So just those first two songs, they're Huey Lewis and the News classics. So that's why I said they're sort of on an upward trajectory. 84, I think, was a big year for them. But I think, actually, we can't discount 1985 because of a little movie with Michael J. Fox. Yes, I'm talking about Doc Hollywood.
What a deep cut, Mike. Doc Hollywood.
You know, that was the only Michael J. Fox movie that came to mind. Of course, we're talking about Back to the Future.
You could have at least went with The Secret of My Success.
I think it's like potato. Doc Hollywood, The Secret of My Success, they're sort of like, not the same thing, but they're sort of the same level. They're not Back to the Future level is what I'm implying. I really didn't think you'd mark out over a reference to Doc Hollywood, but there you go.
Yeah, well.
Episode 19. We got 2 more episodes after this. We're almost done. Gregory Hines and Bonnie Raitt. Sketches include Liberace's Big Note punk music book. I'm just thinking about the visual of that. Liberace and punk music. The Voluptuous Nurse of Verona, a.k.a. the poorly dubbed Italian sex comedy. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in Review, Gregory's Tap Dance, Friday Edition, and Reality Theater. Bonnie Raitt performs Me and the Boys, Keep This Heart in Mind, and Will Ya Won't Ya. Episode 20, second to last episode, Mary Lou Henner and Sister Sledge. There's no sketches listed on this episode. It says Sister Sledge performs My Guy and All the Man I Need, and it does note that this episode is the last episode to air as a late-night sketch show. The next episode aired on primetime in ABC's attempt to keep the show on the air at a different time slot. How well did that work out for you? And the final episode, the one that aired in primetime, they did go whole hog here, at least in the musical guest department. The host was Tony Geary, so there's your Luke again. But your musical guests, how about Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney? And of course, when you think about Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney, yes, they did perform Ebony and Ivory, Living in Perfect Harmony. The sketches included Chariots of Fridays, Tom Kramer film, because Chariots of Fire would have been a big film back in 1981. Drugs Are Us, yet again. I don't know if necessarily that would be something you'd want to air in prime time, but that's just me. Friday Edition featuring science correspondent Bruce Mahler, Liberace's Third World Special, William Shatner, spokesman for the President's Council on Heavy Snoozin', and Bachelor Living with Rich Hall. That's the series. And as I sort of alluded to throughout the episode, none of these characters are memorable. You heard about the Rastafarian chef or whatever it was, and he actually did a number of different roles, but you had the Rastafarian, you had Drugs Are Us on a number of episodes, you had the Latin DJ, it seemed, for like most of season 2 and season 3. These are not memorable characters. You ask me who was on any of those sketches, and I give you a shoulder shrug. I mean, it probably doesn't help that Fridays really hasn't been rerun all that much, particularly over the last 35 or so years, but there's just very few memorable redeeming factors in this series. Yes, we remember Hollywood Cubes because it's absurd and it's a game show, admittedly. And we remember the Andy Kaufman dinner sketch because a full-out fight happened, and as was said earlier, Michael Richards brought the cue cards to him so he could read them, and it was just an absolute mess. But people don't really say, hey, I remember this sketch on Fridays, compared to, hey, do you remember Bassomatic 76 on SNL? Or, hey, do you remember the times that Miss Swan appeared on Mad TV? I think you guys see what I'm talking about. There's just nothing memorable outside of occasionally here and there, but the recurring characters just absolutely aren't memorable. I do have an article here. This is from William Hickey, and this was printed on Friday, April 11th of 1980, so literally the day of the premiere, April 11th of 1980. The title of this article is Ho Hum, Another Ripoff, Fridays. Going through it really fast, this is like a 20-paragraph article, but I'll try to summarize it very nicely. In the real world, it is said that necessity is the mother of invention. While that may or may not be true, one thing is certain in the world of television: imitation is the mother of invention. Let one network mount a show that for one reason or another attracts viewers, and splat, the other networks will duplicate it within a matter of weeks. Hence, we come to ABC TV's Fridays, which will premiere tonight at 11:30. Described by the network as a bit of late-night lunacy, the new program is a direct ripoff of NBC TV's long-running Saturday Night Live. How do I know it's a ripoff of that show? Because I have Tony Thomopoulos' word for it, and he's the president of ABC Entertainment. A few weeks ago in New York, Thomopoulos cheerfully said, yes, we are ripping off Saturday Night Live. That's the way things work in this business. At least they're willing to admit it. Of course, Thomopoulos had little choice to say otherwise, for the concept is the same, the execution of the concept is the same in almost every detail, except that Fridays boasts a somewhat larger number of young zanies appearing on camera. There will be 9 performers doing their comedic thing on Fridays, and all are unknown outside of New York and Los Angeles improvisation houses, as were Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, and the rest of the Saturday Night Live crew. If the show catches on, the nation once again will be afflicted with new-term superstars holding out for long-term deals and top billing ad nauseum. The question may be legitimately asked, will Fridays make it? It seems a bit odd that ABC TV has chosen this particular time to steal NBC TV's programming idea, for Saturday Night Live has been on the wane the past few years and does not command anywhere near the loyalty among younger viewers it once did. It may be that ABC TV was encouraged by the success of another of its newcomers, That's Incredible, which it also stole from NBC TV, which had the temerity to produce a show a year ago called Real People. Oh, there are a few differences to be sure, but nothing that need lessen the required apology for theft. It seems to me that Saturday Night Live has pretty much milked the satire udder the past few years, and I wonder if there are enough viewers willing to accept a double dose of the entertainment form that is said, quote unquote, to close on Saturday night, meaning that satire can be taken only in small amounts and rarely enjoys longevity. Like Saturday Night Live, the new ABC TV show will feature leading music stars from the world of rock and other forms of noise music, so that the regulars will have time to change costumes and prepare for upcoming skits. In short, others will be given the opportunity to achieve the low-light spot of the show. There is, of course, always room for well-done satire, as the Second City Group has proved the past few years with its Toronto-based weekly show. They're talking about SCTV. I don't think they specifically mentioned SCTV in this article. If the new ABC TV gang can come anywhere close to matching the skills and humor of that band of funny people, then there is hope for the show. If they fail, forget it. And it says, just for the record, as she pointed out, that the 9 performers that constitute the Fridays lineup are Brandis Kemp, Daryl Igus, John Rourke, Mark Blankfield, Bruce Mahler, Mary Edith Burrell, Melanie Chardoff, Larry David, and Michael Richards. Just thought you'd like to know. Well, I tell you that second to last paragraph, they sort of hit it on the nose. If they fail, forget it. Outside of Larry David and Michael Richards, with all due respect to Rich Hall, who didn't come till later, if you look at this original cast of 9, nobody really flies off the pages. And I know Larry David, he had success with Seinfeld. That would come 8 years later, 9 years later. Same with Michael Richards. But Daryl, I guess, didn't do much of note after this. Nor did Mark Blankfield. Nor did Bruce Mahler. Nor did Melanie Chardoff until she started scamming people online. Just kidding. Yeah, I think it summed it up. It was an SNL clone. They tried. They failed. Nobody knows who most of the cast is. Talking about regular, everyday people, we're not talking about big TV fans. Outside of Larry David and Michael Richards, I'm sure people would shrug their shoulders and say who. So just like Mad TV in 1995, Fridays came along because SNL really was waning at this point, even before they did the major cast turnover of 1980. Those ratings, if you look back at 79, 80, and you look at some of the shows they did, specifically, I think there was an episode with Milton Berle that it doesn't rerun anywhere, and it's not even included on the DVD season, whatever season it was, 4 or 5 box set. That was bad. So in the end, you got to give ABC credit. They tried. That's it. They tried. The show didn't work out. None of the characters are overly memorable. None of the cast members are overly memorable outside of Larry David and Michael Richards. And Fridays, it didn't give us a good start to the weekend. And that's why now, 43 years later, it was just a thing on TV. You can find us at our website, itwasathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time.
We are back doing something that we love doing so much. Making fun of local commercials.
Wait, we have yet another batch? Because in case you don't know, this is going to be volume 6. But now, I'm surprised we're not running out of potential things. Yeah, there's a lot of bad commercials, and some of them get uploaded to the internet. But as I told Chico and Greg earlier this week, as we are looking forward to next week, I think we really need to look for commercials with bad AI and bad CGI. Especially since that's now the flavor of the month. We didn't have AI the last time we did hometown commercials, which would have been probably about a year ago, I assume. So, hey, let's not just focus on the weird commercials, the bad commercials, but maybe let's focus on just absolute junk AI and computer graphics. And I didn't share an ad with Greg, but there's one ad where I watch it and it's like the CGI on this, it looks like CGI from, not even joking, like 25 or 30 years ago. And the ads haven't been around that long. I mean, they've been around for probably 5 years or so, but there's bad CGI, and then in 2025, there's bad CGI. So, yay, we're going to be doing more hometown commercials. 6th volume. Holy Hannah. Next time, right here at It Was a Thing on TV. Thank you for listening. Hometown Commercial 6. What would the entry of that be? 755 Foxtrots? You can't go alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and then go to the 6th letter. I mean, we're a smart show, but we don't want to talk over our listeners' heads saying, hey, this is the 6th letter of the Greek alphabet. So, wow, Hometown Commercials version Foxtrot next week. How about that? Right here it is a thing on TV. Thank you for listening. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we will catch you here next Friday with Hometown Commercials yet again.
Wow!
Taylor Hicks?
Yup.
They dug him up in whatever that was, 2012, 2013. Good heavens. But also, I think it's well known how much I absolutely abhor that song. That was a great version. And I'm not saying that because you had Stephen Colbert and you had Jimmy Fallon and Taylor Hicks. But that presentation is just so much better than the OG song. And I could see Chico, he's like banging his head along. And I was sort of doing the same thing. I was getting into it. But man, that is the version of the song that should have made it on air. That should have been what became the popular version.
The auto-tune. It makes the song right there.
No, yep. I don't think it's just... No. I don't think it's just the auto-tune. I do think it is the combined talents of all parties involved. Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon and Taylor Hicks, and I'm guessing Fallon's band at that point. Is that Questlove?
The Roots.
The Roots. I think I'm getting my James Corden mixed up with Jimmy Fallon. But I think all those pieces and parts, when you put them together, that's a much better end result than Rebecca Black did, or whoever she was, Rebecca De Mornay or whatever. I think it's Rebecca Black. I know it's not Rebecca De Mornay. I'm just saying I don't remember the last name of the person. I think it's Rebecca Black, but still much better. I actually really thoroughly enjoy that version.
And